All right, we have five guys up here: Garrett Cole, Spencer Strider, Dylan Cease, Emmanuel Classe, and Joe Ryan. We have all five of these guys paused at the moment in which their front foot has made contact with the ground for the very first time. When that front foot gets into the ground here, we call this foot strike. So when our front foot strikes the ground is where we have paused these guys' videos. At this foot strike position, we want to be able to check off a couple key positions with our body. The first position we want to think about is our belt buckle getting itself rotated and facing our catcher as much as possible. In order to get that belt buckle to be facing the catcher, we need this back hip to have rotated forward. We also need this back knee to have rotated forward. And to help accelerate the back knee and the back hip's rotation, we need to drive through our big toe. And we can see that with all five of these guys, the back hip has gone forward, the back knee has rotated around, and we have driven through the big toe. The back hip has rotated forward, same with the knee, and the foot is driving through the big toe, helping the knee and the hip rotate forward. Same thing with Classe down here. He's driven through his big toe, which helps rotate that knee, which helps get that back hip to rotate, which ultimately gets the belt buckle to face the target. And then same thing here with Mr. Ryan. Everything has rotated forward. What we can also notice and want to check off is that the upper body has separated itself from the lower body. Our shoulders have separated themselves from our hips. And we've said everything with our lower body has rotated to the target. And we just said we want to separate our shoulders from our hips. So our hips going to the target, we need to separate that. So that means the chest, the shoulders, need to continue facing the same way they started. With all five of these guys being right-handed, that means their chest remains facing into third base dugout, while the hips have rotated home. So if we clear all those arrows up and we take each of these guys one by one and kind of make them bigger, we'll watch Garrett Cole in full speed, and then in slow motion, we will pause him at that foot strike position. Boom. So again, we want to watch this back hip, this back knee, and this back foot. And we're going to rewind to right before he gets that foot strike to occur. And we're going to watch how this back hip is starting here, the back knee is starting here, and the back foot is still holding its ground on the pitching rubber. And we're going to be able to see how much rotation. Oh, wow, that got aggressive. how much rotation is actually occurring. Boom. 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 Let's take that to our next guy. Spencer Strider. Again, we'll watch it in real time and then in slow motion. We'll pause Strider at his foot strike position. Boom. Okay, we can see back hip is here. Back knee is all the way turned over. Back foot all the way turned over. We rotate, or rather, we unrotate that and we take him back. And we can see when he begins rotating just how much everything gets to rotate forward. Then his foot lands in the ground. Lower body rotates first. Boom. Then the foot gets into the ground at foot strike. We have now successfully separated our lower half, which is facing the target, from our upper half, which is still facing the dugout. The more of this upper lower half separation, or hip shoulder separation, the more of that we achieve, the more power we're going to create, and the amount of stress that gets put on our arm is going to decrease. Let's take this to our next guy, Class A. Again, we'll watch it in real time and then in slow motion. Pause him at foot strike. So boom, there's the foot in the ground. We can see that belt buckle going to that target while the chest still continues to face third base dugout. How did the belt buckle get to the target while the chest remains in its same position? Well, it's because that back knee rotated forward and we were able to drive through our big toe. We were able to rotate our foot around our big toe, which drives our entire body forward. Drives our entire body forward. The rotation of the knee and the drive through the big toe, the folding over of the foot over the toe, rolling my foot over my big toe, helps get everything to drive forward. And then once the lower body drives forward, now it's time for the upper body to drive forward. Go to our next guy, Dylan Cease. Again, first one will be full speed. And this next one will be slow motion. We'll pause it at foot strike. Boom. We can see that same thing, driving through that big toe, folding his foot over his big toe, extending his leg through that big toe, reaching away from the pitching rubber through our big toe. So that way our back knee can rotate forward, along with our back hip can rotate forward. Boom. Boom. And then, as we can see, boom. Our 3 points of our back leg is the hip, the knee, and the foot. We want to be strong in here so we can send power out through here. Bam. And then once we send that power through with the lower half, now it's time for the upper half. And where's our final guy? Joe Ryan. You guys already know the drill. Starting full speed. And then we'll go slow-mo. Pausing it at foot strike, where we can see again driving through that big toe, rotating that knee all the way down and around, getting that back hip to drive itself forward, which gets the belt buckle to the target, which is our catcher. All meanwhile, our chest, our upper body has separated itself from the lower body. Lower body is going to the target. The upper body is fighting to not do that, which means stay back. So that way, once this lower body creates all this power, now we can send it up to the upper body to send all that power out. All right, what we're discussing next is the front leg. As we see, got this nice, good alignment of the hip, knee, and foot going to our target. Everyone's going to have slightly different angles in their lead leg. All right, but the important part is that we rotate this front leg just like we're rotating the back leg. And we can see that the knees are almost synchronized up, synced up, synced up. That the knees are synced up. When the back knee's rotating, so is the front knee. Everyone's going to come down the mound a little different, but regardless, that front knee, that front foot has got to rotate to our target. Once that foot gets in the ground, we have taken energy and we have sent it down this mound. We have sent the energy from the back foot to the front foot. And now we got to get this energy from the front foot up to our upper body and then out our upper body down that mound. And this front leg is a huge piece of that. We have to make sure that this front leg becomes a firm, fixed point that we can drive over and rotate around. We need to be able to drive our trunk, which is from our shoulders to our hips, our trunk, we have to drive over and around our front leg. We're going to be able to do that the fastest and the most aggressive when this front leg is firm. Just like our front leg gets firm when we swing, we need to be throwing on a firm front leg. More guys than not achieve that firmness in that front leg by taking the leg and locking out, stiffening up, or straightening that leg. So this angle that we have here with Dylan Cease, we'll see straightens out, stiffens up, locks out. And when that leg does that and turns into a firm point, that trunk is able to rotate itself in front of the leg, and then also around that leg. So because that front leg got firm, it stiffened up, it locked out, it straightened up, that allows the upper body to get slammed down, sent down, accelerated forward, as the arm is also then sent down. And then we can finish that rotation around. We'll come over here to Class A and we'll look at that same thing. So here's that angle in that front leg. We need to now be able to get that trunk in front of the leg and then around the leg. So we'll watch and see how it doesn't lock all the way out like C's front leg did, but it is firm. There's firmness there, meaning the knee does not drift forward. The knee, in fact, does some of that locking out, locking out, locking out. Okay. Come up here to Garrett Cole. Front leg angle. This has got to become firm so we can get the trunk in front and then around the front side. So we can see Garrett Cole fully locks that thing out. Starting here, gets to there. And what's that helping? That's helping get the trunk out in front. Out in front. Down the mound. And then ultimately, what else? Around. And then Joe Ryan. Same thing. That angle, that front leg needs to become firm so we can drive that trunk out in front and then down and around. And we can see not a full lockout guy, but a knee is not going to keep drifting forward. So that way it is firm. Now it's locked out. And now I can rotate around it. Around it. Around it. But one of the things we're able to see here is just how out in front through that last part of that ball being in our hands and that first part of that arm turning over into pronation to decelerate, that head to the foot is. That head to the foot is. Head to the foot is. Getting ourselves to rotate out in front. Out in front. Rotate forward. Being able to rotate forward. That's all because that front leg becoming a firm, fixed point that we can drive our chest down to help accelerate our arm out in front. And then we can see the same thing. The Strider is a lockout guy. Stiffening that thing up. Straightening it up. So that way the trunk can get sent forward. Boom. Foot strike, he's here. So as well, we can see getting himself out over that front leg because that front leg became firm. It became a fixed point that we can get out in front of and then also be able to rotate around. All right, so let's now discuss upper body at foot strike here. So again, we're looking at this part of our body. And the first thing we want to think about is our throwing arm. We want to have a 90-ish degree angle in both our elbow and our armpit. We're looking for this glove to be at our chest, straight in front of us to our target. We don't want this glove getting outside of our shoulder. If this glove's getting outside of our front shoulder is going to start to open up, and now we're not going to be able to rotate out in front as well because we'll be tilted and our rotation will be on a slight axis. Again, that chest, like we've been talking about, has not rotated. And obviously, head looking straight over top of our shoulder down the barrel. Pull that, our quad view here up with these guys. Get them all back to foot strike. Okay, so as we can see, everyone's glove's in a slightly different position, but the overall theme is what? Glove is in line with chest. Glove is in line with chest. Glove is in line with chest. Glove is in line with his upper body. I don't want to say chest because chest is up here. It's more in line with his midsection. None of the gloves are outside of their bodies. None of their gloves have opened their upper bodies up, and that is why they were able to create tremendous upper-lower half separation. Not just because the lower body rotated itself properly and on time, but it's because the upper body did not rotate with it. And the easiest way for the upper body to start to rotate with the lower body is by that glove swooping outside of our body, swooping outside of our shoulder, which would then start the shoulder to swoop out, which would then start to bring the back shoulder forward, which now starts to make the chest, instead of facing third base dugout, starts to face the on deck circle. So now the hips, which are going this way, and the shoulders were going this way for ultimate separation, now the hips that are facing this way, the shoulders are facing this way. Less separation, which means less velo and extra stress on the arm to make that throw, which is the complete opposite of what we're trying to achieve through our good, clean mechanics. So we can see with that glove in that good position, the glove is just going to hold there as the body rotates to it. The glove will hold there as the body of the backside rotates to it. The glove will hold there as the body rotates through it. The glove will hold there as the body rotates through it. Boom. 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 As long as the lower body takes care of business, leading into foot strike, and the upper body has done its job of staying back, everything just happens on its own. But that's why it's so critical that the lower body does its thing on time. And on time meaning by the time that foot gets in the ground, and doing its thing meaning fully rotated as much as we possibly can. And the upper body does its thing leading into foot strike, which is stay closed. Do not open up. Do not let my glove open my shoulder, and keep my arm loaded back. I don't rotate the throw until after the foot gets into the ground. My lower body rotates to get the foot into the ground. Then my upper body rotates after the foot is in the ground. Now it just becomes how fast, violent, and explosive can I make them? All right, dude, so we're just going to let your video play here through 2 times. The first time will be all one motion, so you can see what you look like. Second time, we'll be pausing it at that foot strike position that we just talked about with those big leaguers, so that way you can compare and contrast your body's position to their positions. And that way we can see how we can create some more power in this delivery of yours. Okay, so there's that foot strike position. And as we see, we got that back foot rotated forward, which helps that back knee get fully rotated, which when those two do that, that gets that back hip to rotate forward, which we can see right here. We also then could look at the belt buckle and say that that's also going towards that target. We can see this front side has done a good job getting in a good, strong alignment to that target. So now we can say our lower body has rotated to the target at the moment of foot strike. When that foot strikes the ground, when the foot lands into the ground, we did what we need to do, and that is have that lower body rotated towards the target. So that's step 1 complete of the upper lower half separation process. So now we look at that upper half, and we said we don't want that to rotate at this point, right? That lower body has rotated forward while that upper body has been fighting to stay back, creating as much upper lower half separation as possible, which when we do that, we maximize how much our body is able to power the throw, which minimizes the amount of stress the arm has to go through to make a strong throw, which both of those things are characteristics that a pitcher needs to have to be not only successful, but to go deep into games. And not just deep into games, but year after year after year after year after year for however long that career is going to be. This type of delivery right here is one that's going to help keep this arm as stress-free as it possibly can. as our velocity continues to climb and climb and climb as we continue to get stronger and stronger and older and older. Glove is in a just fantastic position. Couldn't ask for that to be anywhere better at this point in time, because if that glove did get outside of our body, that would start to open up our shoulders, and now our upper body would have been rotating early, which means we would have been losing out on some of that upper lower half separation. But because this glove stays bam right in front of the body, that shoulder isn't going to peel open. Once this glove gets outside the body, that shoulder will end up having to go outside the body as well with it. But because it doesn't, we are in a fantastic upper lower half separation position here at foot strike. We'll be able to see as we come out of that, this front leg does a good job bracing itself, locking itself out, which allows all that power that we just created rotationally and linearly to our target as we went down the mound, down the mound, down the mound. We created linear energy. Linear, L-I-N-E-A-R, linear energy going to the target. I hope that's how you spell linear. And then we also created rotational energy by the lower body rotating forward. Now, as we have that coming out of the lower body, we need to get it up to the upper body, both the linear and the rotational energy. And the way we do that is making sure that this knee braces, stays firm. So that way the energy that was going rotationally into this front foot and linearly into this front foot can now get shot up out of that front foot to the upper body. And your body does a very good job of doing that. Boom, that leg locks out, that leg gets stiff, that leg gets firm, which helps send that energy up and then ultimately out. And then down and through. I mean, super, super clean. Really, really good. The one thing we're going to want to work on is getting the lower half more engaged. So that way the movements that we do already, the rotation that we do, the drive that we do, and the timing that we do it at, you do it very, very well. Now we just need to get that lower body more engaged so that we can get everything that you do well already just stronger, more explosive. So that way we create more power in the lower half. And because your timing is so well, we'll be able to send that extra power up. So that way we're able to use that extra power with our throw. And in order to get our legs more involved, our lower half more involved, I just want you to think about getting a little deeper. We're going to see if we can create more power by getting more depth. I want you to think for a moment, if you were just standing here and we were going to do a standing high jump, how low are you going to bend down? How far are you going to bend down before you explode and jump up? If you think the distance that you would want to load down before you jumped up is at a lower depth than you're getting here, if you think that you would want to squat lower than just this before you jumped up as high as you possibly could, then I think we want to get our body here as we go down the mound, as we travel down the mound. I think we're going to want to think about sitting deeper. And a good way to visualize that is, let's think, and it's hard to know where that belt line, waistline is at. Let's just say it's about here. Okay? Somewhere in this range. So we're going to say that we start somewhere the back hip about here. Okay? We're going to say your back hip's about right here at this point. Front hip we know is here, but we could have a little bit of angling going on with the hips. But for all purposes, we're going to say that back hip is right here. And now we're going to go to foot strike, boom, of right here. So right now we can see, and when we kind of trace that hip, boom, 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 and then there, okay? So obviously the shortest distance between 2 points, point A and point B, would be a straight line. Okay, that would be the shortest distance. But the shortest distance is not the strongest or the fastest distance. We also know going here to here is definitely not the shortest. It's definitely the longest. But the longest is also not going to be the strongest. Your sort of route that you have taken here is a strong route. This route here is a fast route. This route that you've taken is going to be the fastest way to get there. However, I think if we can get this to be going a little bit lower here, and then it gets out to here, I think that route will be the fastest. And I think that route will be the most powerful. So I just think as we're going down and out, down and out, down and out, down and out, I think we may be able to go down and out, down and out, down and out for a little longer before it's just out, 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 out. If that makes sense. Right now, our path's kind of like this. I think if we could get a little bit more like that, we're going to create a little bit more power. Not here. Your path is really good. Let's just make this part a little deeper. We're just going to get those legs a little bit more engaged. But everything else you do with your delivery is like so sweet. It's very, 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 very good. By far, of all the guys that were there on Friday, best delivery is right here. So of everyone else on the team needs to be making some comparisons with how the body's moving and staying strong, Ty is the guy. All right, so we're going to let your video play through here 2 times. The first time will be all one motion. Second time, we will be pausing it at foot strike. So that way you have the opportunity to compare and contrast your body's position at foot strike to the big leaguers that we just got done discussing. All right, so here's foot strike. And we look, we got that back leg. Let me get my marker out here. We got our back leg is nice and rotated forward. Back knee has become rotated and forward, which helps get that back hip out in front. And we can see that belt buckle then is going right to the target. So our lower half has done a good job rotating to the target, while our upper half has tried to stay separated from that. Meaning the lower half is facing one direction, while the upper half faces a different direction. The upper and lower half were originally both facing the same direction, belt buckle, chest, and then we took the lower body and we sent it forward while we kept the chest in line, creating our upper and lower half separation. So how we're getting down the mound is good, strong, and efficient. How our glove is traveling out is good, clean, and helping us stay in line with our target at foot strike because that glove is staying in front of us. So lower half, real good. Upper half glove side, really good. Only thing that we need to focus on is our upper half arm side. And that cue is where we're loading our arm up. We're going to notice that this elbow is very much underneath the shoulder, which means we don't have a 90-degree angle here. And we can also see that we don't have a 90-degree angle here. We have less than those angles. When we have this elbow down low here, low meaning beneath the shoulder, as we go to throw this baseball, our arm is going to have to get up, get up, get up. And now that as that arm is getting up to make that throw, our hand is laying back where we get this type of layback here. Your arm is doing a lot of layback, straight back behind your head almost. And when that layback is occurring behind your head like that, that puts a tremendous amount of stress on that elbow. And that's something that could, over the course of time, whether that's the course of a season, the course of your career, the course of this off season, throughout the course, this elbow taking more and more stress will eventually lead to a point of pain, discomfort, or injury. So obviously we want to karate chop that path and get it back to being here instead of continuing to climb with higher and higher likelihoods of potential injury into that elbow. So like we saw in that big leaguer, once that foot gets down, we want to see more of a 90-degree angle in our arm here, which is going to help as we rotate those shoulders. That arm's going to lay back behind our arm instead of laying back behind our elbow. Or I'm sorry, rather laying back behind our head, which adds extra stress to that elbow. But literally everything else that you're doing in a delivery, dude, is really, really good. It's fast, it's aggressive, it's powerful. You're creating energy early, so it's not difficult to create more energy later in your delivery. It's just that arm is getting into a position that is going to be less than ideal for our arm's health long term. So what we're going to work on is just some simple, we call them arm path drills, but it's not really the path your arm is taking. It's just how we're loading it up. How we're going from it being over here with this type of position to getting it loaded up to here. So that way we're not in this position, but we're more in a 90-degree position. Everything else looking good and strong. All right, so we're gonna let your video play through here 2 times. The first time will be all one motion so you can see what's going on. And the second time we will be pausing it at foot strike so that way you can compare and contrast the things that you learned, saw, heard. Once again, about the pitching delivery from all those big leaguer examples we just got done watching. So there it is. That's when our foot hits the ground for the very first time. That's our foot strike. We can see back foot has not done any rotating. The back kneecap has not been able to rotate. And because those two have not rotated, the back hip has not gone forward. And we can see that because the center of your shorts are still facing us, which is the same position that the center of your chest is facing, us. Meaning our upper and lower halves have not separated. Meaning we are not creating extra power and we are not reducing stress on the arm. So that means our power is being minimized and the stress put on our arm is being maximized with each and every throw that we make when our lower half is not doing what it's supposed to do when it needs to do it by. And the lower half needs to rotate itself to the target by the time this front foot hits the ground. We can see your front foot is already hitting the ground and our lower half has not rotated at all. And because of that, now we're going to have to violently spin this upper half side to side in order to get this back hip to start to come forward. So now instead of the lower half rotating first and helping then the upper half rotate even more violently, the upper half is going to rotate and be having to pull and drag the backside and the lower half forward. Meaning it's not working as fast or as efficiently as it would if we were moving the body in the right sequence, the right order. We gotta get the front leg, kneecap facing the target. We gotta get that back foot turned over. You got a lot of guys, not a lot, you got a decent amount of guys on the team that we can be looking at for this example. Let's get Ty up here. You'll be able to see the position his back leg, his front leg gets into by the time he gets into front foot strike. Right there. We can see how that's rotated, and we can see how this kneecap is going straight to the target. Big difference between Ty here and you. You, Ty. Ty's position, your position. Big, big differences. Who else can we look at from your team? We can look at Zander. Where's he at? Over here. You can watch Zander get himself into foot strike, and we'll watch how the back leg, front leg both have rotated to the target by the time that front foot has hit the ground. So again, there's Zander's position, your position. Your knee is going like a less than sign, and Zander's knee is going pretty much straight towards the target. We got toe, heel, knee, hip on Zander, and we got toe, heel, knee, hip. Nothing has driven us out forward because of this front, or rather his back foot still stuck to the ground. So like it was last year and like it was the year before that, we're now on year 3 of simply saying we have to get our lower body rotated into foot strike, not lower body rotates after foot strike. It's the only thing that you have to work on this entire winter. We have all of November, December, January, February, March. We got 5 months before high school tryouts start to get this cleaned up. This can get cleaned up in less than a month if we're dedicated, we have a good work ethic, and we stay committed and dedicated to working on it a little bit every single day. Every time I throw the baseball, I have to know this is what my lower body is going to do if I do not tell it to do something different and try to move differently than I have. We will always get to this. All right, belt buckle needs to get to the target. In order for the belt buckle to get to the target, front kneecap to the target. In order to get the belt buckle to the target, back hip has to get going to the target. In order for the back hip to get going to the target, the back knee needs to rotate forward. In order to get the back knee to rotate forward, We got to rotate and drive through that big toe, get our foot away from the pitching rubber, drive our whole body away from the pitching rubber. And we drive it away through rotation. So all we're going to be working on all day, every day, each and every week, rotate the lower half, rotate the lower half, rotate the lower half, rotate the lower half. It's all you should be saying in your head before each and every throw. Rotate the lower half, rotate the lower half. All right, bud. We're just going to let your video play through here 2 times. First time, all one motion, so you can see how you're looking. And then the second time, we're going to pause it at that foot strike position, so that way you can see how your body's looking compared to what those big leaguers were looking like. And there we are. So if we just start with the lower body, we can see that front leg is nice, pretty well nice and straight in front of us. We're in a good position to be able to get firm from here and support ourselves as we rotate around. We may see a little wobble in this knee as we go to throw. If we do, we're going to say that this knee just needs to get fully rotated more. So that way maybe we're just a little bit more in line here, and that may be able to help us. So if we go forward from there and just watch that front knee, we can say, no, we're pretty good there. We're going to be able to say that our front leg getting into foot strike is doing a pretty good job. We then transition to the back leg, and we can see we're doing a real good job driving through that big toe, into foot strike, into foot strike, into foot strike. So this would be a good spot for Kunes to see the timing of our lower body's rotation, specifically the drive through the big toe, how to get our foot rotated, how to get our back hip driving forward. Watch here. When the back foot really drives through the big toe, watch this back hip come forward. Boom. Back hip. So, good for anyone that needs to see the timing of the lower body. Evan is the guy to be looking at here. So, let's play it again until it gets to that foot strike position. Okay. So, like we said, back foot's doing a good job rotating forward, which gets the back knee to be able to rotate all the way forward, which when those two occur, that allows that back hip to be rotated forward. We can see that like we saw over here because that back hip is going forward, which gets that belt buckle going to that target. So our lower half, boom, fantastic. We then go up to the upper half, and we can see, unfortunately, that upper half is not staying back. It's not separating itself from the lower half. Our upper half has also begun to rotate forward with that lower half. And when we look at that front view, we get a good glimpse of just how much that upper half has rotated with that lower half. And we just kind of look at angle of the hips and the angles of the shoulders, and they're almost exactly the same. So our first thing that we got to remember here is that, excuse me, our foot gets down first, then we can rotate the upper half. Okay? Foot down, then upper body rotates. That's our first thing we want to think about. Another way to think of that, if it's easier for you to think of, is when this back hip and back knee and back foot are really driving forward, I want this arm to be loading up and back. So when my back hip rotates, when my back hip rotates, when my back hip rotates, notice how your arm is going forward. When the back hip rotates, your arm is loading up. Your hand and arm are loading up. Boom, boom, boom. That's one half of it. But it's also loading forward. And we can see that from here on the side view. It's loading, yes, it's loading up, 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 but it's also loading up forward. We need it to be loading back. And someone on the team that we can use that does this well is Ty. So if we watch Ty over here on this front view, boom, see how it's back here? If we come and watch it over here, his arm is loading up like yours, but it's also loading back. It's back here. So that way at boom, foot strike, at foot strike, his upper body is in line. Versus at foot strike for you, your upper body is already coming around. So we can think of two things, either foot down first, then upper body rotates, or we can think about as the back side of the lower body rotates forward, we got to be loading the upper body, specifically the throwing arm, back. And when we do that, that's when we get the separation. Okay? Second thing we need to think about, foot down, then that foot's got to get firm, stiff, straight. We got to make this leg become that firm flagpole of which our flag can violently rotate around. We need this leg to turn into a pole so that our tetherball can whip around it fast. What we're going to notice when we go to rotate our flag around, our tetherball around, just how unstable that front leg is. And that's what causes all this energy to be leaking and falling forward. We need to have this leg go from this bend like we saw in those big leaguer videos to either holding this position, aka don't let this kneecap go beyond this bend. We need to either maintain, sorry, it's not easy to do with my trackpad here. Either need to maintain this angle or we need to lock it out and straighten it out. And we can see as your throw comes through how everything goes in front of it. So both of our mechanical cues that we're going to want to work with deal with this foot getting down in the ground. So we're going to have to really start to learn when this foot gets in the ground, what it feels like to get the foot in the ground. When the foot gets in the ground, where's my body at? That's what we're going to be working on. Because when that foot gets in the ground, we got to make sure the upper body stays back. And also, once that foot gets into the ground, we got to firm it up, stiffen it up, straighten it out. Whatever it is that your mind is going to associate that movement easiest with. All right, bud, we're going to have your video play here 2 times through. The first time will be all one motion so you can see what you're looking like. The second time, we're going to pause it at that foot strike, so that way you can see your body's positioning compared to what you just saw and learned with those big league examples. Okay, so actually, before we even get to there, let's first talk about why those two different deliveries were at a different rate. The side view here, this was the first video we took. The front view is the second video we took. And in between those two, I mentioned to you that we wanted to think about the speed or the tempo that our delivery was going at increase by like 2 or 3. So we said if your delivery was currently at like a 3 with the leg lift coming up and the body going, we wanted to get it to like a 5 or a 6. And that's why this delivery over here starts so much earlier than this one does, because this one that we're looking at straight up is the one that we were more aggressive with the leg lift, so it can go faster. So we can see how much more efficient we can be with the delivery when the leg lift is at a faster tempo. So let's continue to think about that as one of our key points. I did not add that to our cues, but that will definitely help us stay strong if we have an aggressive leg lift. But let's look at these positions at our moment of boom, foot strike. So like we saw in the video, the big leaguers, we want this front leg to get in a good alignment with our target, which it appears we have. We also want that glove to still be in front of the body, which it is. So that way we can be looking straight down that shoulder towards our target, which we are. So everything with our front side, so if we looked at the side view, everything with our front side is good at the moment of foot strike. Or again, the moment that that foot, boom, gets into the ground. Everything with our front side is good. If we now look at the backside, and more specifically the upper half part of the backside, so the throwing arm, we have found ourselves in a good 90-ish position. So the arm is ready to throw. We now look at that backside, and again, more specifically, the lower half backside, so this back leg. And we can see that the back foot is trying to rotate forward, which is going to help complete this back knee rotated forward all the way, which when that does happen, we'll be able to get this back hip to rotate more forward, which will ultimately help get this belt buckle more towards the target. And right now we could see, if we zoomed in over here, and we said this white little thing right here is probably a drawstring maybe of your shorts. That's kind of like the center of your shorts. We're barely able to see if there's a belt buckle there towards us, because we can barely see your back hip. And that's because the back foot hasn't completed its rotation, which doesn't allow the back knee to complete its rotation, which doesn't allow the back hip to get going forward. If we looked at one of your teammates, we could look at Evan. Even though he's a lefty, we just mirror what we're seeing. And we'll pause him at foot strike. And we can just see how much more forward, how much more rotated this back foot is when that front foot does get into the ground. Boom. Versus you. Okay, so if we did this over here, and we did this over here, we'll be able to see those differences. Boom, into foot strike, boom, into foot strike. And again, we're just looking at the lower halves here. Boom, versus boom. How you're just kind of spinning in place, spinning in place. You're just kind of stepping and throwing versus driving and pitching. Okay, so we got to create some power out of your lower body. We got to get the legs more engaged. So that way the legs can create the power that gets sent up to the upper body to be used with the power your upper body can create when it rotates to throw. So that brings us to our first point. Get lower half more involved. The next thing we're going to talk about is going to help that is to start strong so we can stay strong. When we look at our set position, that's our start position, okay? And what we're going to notice is that we got a lot more of our body's weight over this front foot, which means we're going to have to take all of that weight that's on this front foot and shift it to this foot, our back foot, in order to get that front foot up off the ground. And we're going to notice this by our body sliding backwards, back towards second before this foot even starts to come up off the ground. So now that good base runner that's either at first or second base, who's looking to get to the next base, doesn't have to just wait till he sees your front foot start to come off the ground. He can start and have an idea even earlier. He can just wait until he sees this, that shift in your body. Now he's off to the races. So if we need to get all the way to here before we're comfortable getting the leg up off the ground, this is the starting position we need to be at. We need more of our body weight on this back leg and less of our body weight on that front leg. To help us do that, we'll have our back knee slightly bent and our front knee will be straight. That right there will get the weight to start to go back. And from there, it's just how much back do you need to get so that way when we lift this leg up, we don't have to be rocking backwards to do that. Okay? So start strong, stay strong. And then get lower half more engaged. And that will help us ultimately be able to explode our upper half down through release. What we're going to see is that because we're not driving out with the lower body, our upper body is not going to really want to get out too much. It gets out to release, but then it doesn't really get out and down through release. Someone that can help you visualize that on the team would be this. And again, we're not trying to become someone else, but this would be a very good over-exaggeration of driving down through release would be Zander. Down through release before he ultimately stacks himself back up. That's going to help us take this extra power that we'll get by starting strong and staying strong, the extra power we're going to get by getting our lower body more involved. We are going to have more power come out at the end, and we're going to need to be ready for that extra power, so we're going to need to be able to finish it more by thinking, driving down through release more. Okay, we're going to play your video 2 times through here. First time can be all in motion, so you can see how your body's moving. And then the second time, we'll pause it at foot strike, so that way we can compare and contrast things that you saw and were refreshed to in terms of the pitch and delivery with the big league videos. I do apologize, the side view video, I'm not sure why it's not in focus, but we'll still be able to talk about things nonetheless. All right, so the first thing we're going to notice is a lot of tippy toes. Oops, a lot of being on our tippy toes. We want to think about once that foot gets into the ground, it's time to throw. And if it's time to throw, it's time to move our bodies with as much violence in rotation as we possibly can. Because we have stored up as much energy as possible at this moment in time. So from the start of our delivery to this part of our delivery, we have tried to create as much energy as possible and store it. And now it's time to unleash it. And if we're going to unleash as much power as we possibly can, I'm going to want to be in a good, strong base. And being on my tippy toes, especially this front foot, is not going to be ideal. And what you're going to notice as we continue this throw is that we stay on our tippy toes. Okay? We need to get this foot into the ground, flat, flush. We need to drive our power into the ground. It's tough to do that if we're going to be always on our tippy toes. Also, it's tough to drive our backside forward if we're just going up onto our toes. If we're just lifting our heel up, lifting our heel up, lifting our heel straight up onto our, again, tippy toes. We haven't done any rotation with the back foot. We have just gone onto our tippy toes. We have just lifted our heel up. Our weight has gone towards third base, and now we're trying to get that weight to go home. And now we're in foot strike on our tippy toes. So our first thing we need to think about is a strong base at foot strike. Okay? We want to be strong here. And if we use one of your teammates, we can use Evan here to demonstrate that. So watch Evan's lower body here, and when he gets into foot strike, boom. Nice and flush and flat. This leg is nice and strong into the target. This back foot heel didn't come up, 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 up. And in fact, it went forward, 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 forward. Forward, 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 forward. Okay? This back heel isn't coming up, 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 up like yours. It's going forward, forward, forward. Forward, forward, forward. Boom, foot strike. We got you up here, and your heel is just going up, 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 up. What's Evans doing? Evans' heel is going forward, 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 forward. Okay, so what we need to think about is our lower body rotates into foot strike. The lower body is rotating into the foot striking the ground. Versus your back leg just spinning up and then landing on your tippy toes. Versus rotating into your stride. So Evan has some of the best timing and rotation of the back leg specifically, but the lower body in general. So for all of us that need to see that lower body rotating into foot strike, Evan is our guy. And then the final thing, Gio, is keep the ball in the glove. Okay? I want you just to watch this side view here, and we'll even zoom in. And I want you to tell me, or just say to yourself, when you know what pitch you're throwing, if you were the batter, okay? And I'm probably going to be able to tell you sooner than you can. One, because I'm aware of what's happening. Now, fastball. Boom. Why? You're showing me. I can see this. I'm a baseball player. I'm a hitter. I have been training to study the pitcher and to pick up the baseball and to read the baseball. And if you're going to show me fastball, now I can't see it no more, but I already know it's a fastball. So now I'm sitting here 60 feet, 6 inches, licking my chops, waiting to see this ball come out of your hand. And now I don't have to think, is it fastball, curveball, changeup, slider, whatever it may be. I just see that it's coming high. What's high? Fastball. I already know it's fastball. Or I see it coming outside. Okay, now it's got to track. Is it going to be too far outside, or am I going to hit this fastball the other way? Right? So keep that ball in your glove. Instead of it coming out and showing the batter what you're throwing, keep it in your glove. 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 Keep it. Now it's coming out of your glove. Now it's coming out of your glove. Now it's coming out of your glove. So what does that mean about your glove? Your glove can't be facing the target if we're going to keep that ball in the glove. We got to keep the glove in this position while we raise the leg up. That way the ball does not come out. And that way we can keep the ball in the glove longer. Alrighty, we're going to play your video 2 times here. First time will be all one motion so you can see what you look like. Second time, we'll be pausing it at that foot strike position so that way we can compare and contrast things that you just saw, heard, and learned in the big leaguers to what you are doing in your delivery. So here's that foot strike position. So we look at that lower body and we can see that this front leg and this knee hasn't quite fully rotated. And because that hasn't quite fully rotated, it makes it very difficult for the belt buckle and the back hip to rotate forward. We can also see that this back foot has begun to try and rotate this back knee forward, but it's done more of just kind of lifting up into the toes. Lifting up into the toes, it hasn't rotated yet. We can also see, and if we just drew the angle of the hips are here and the angle of the shoulders are here, we haven't separated anything, and that's because the lower body has not rotated forward. So the first thing we need to be thinking about is lower body rotates into our foot strike. The second thing we want to think about, and we just saw it over here, is keep glove side closed as long as possible. Okay, so our glove side is here. We want to keep that closed for as long as possible. Meaning, here is neutral, this side is closed, and this side is open. So closed and open. We need to keep our glove side closed for longer. So we're going to watch. Still closed, but now here it's going very quickly to that open side, to that open side, to that open side. And we can see as it's getting its way over there, what it's doing to the front shoulder, what it's doing to this front shoulder. So the front shoulder is in line with the target, and now it's peeling and opening up, peeling and opening up, peeling and opening up, peeling and opening up. And when that front shoulder starts to peel and open up, now our throw is going to become rotationally this way. It's going to get flung up kind of this way. And it's going to be very difficult to get it to be accelerating this way, which means we're going to have minimum power and minimum command over that throw when our shoulders are forced to rotate on this weird axis here. How the earth is tilted on an axis, your axis has opened up and made it now a slower, weaker, less efficient path for the shoulders to rotate around. So we need to think about keeping this glove closed longer. So what could that look like? Let's look at a guy like Ty here, and let's just watch the position that his hand gets into as the glove side travels forward. We're in that thumb down, palm out position. When we get into a thumb down, palm out position, this helps keep the front shoulder kind of curled inwards. We can see it here, how it's kind of curled and tucked inwards. If the shoulder of yours at the end is opening up early, what's an easy adjustment? Well, it would be to keep it closed longer. Well, what if I started with it closed more? Would that help me keep it closed longer? Probably a good start. But then we can also see how that thumb down position remains until he goes to finish the glove. And where's the glove finishing? It's finishing up into his armpit, up into his rib cage. The glove finishes up into there. Oops, didn't mean to do that. Glove is finishing up into there at foot strike. Boom. Versus where your glove's at foot strike. So we need to keep glove side closed as long as possible. In order to do that, we need to think about getting thumb down, palm out. Until we get thumb down, palm out, this glove is going to want to continuously go da-da-da-da-da-da over this way, which is going to eventually make the shoulder go that way. Okay. What's another reason these shoulders are opening up like this early and this glove is falling down here early? Well, it could be your body's way of trying to counter or trying to work around, trying to find a fix for how to throw this baseball when the lower body does not get itself into the position that it needs to when that foot gets into the ground. And what's that position that lower body needs to get to when that foot gets in the ground? It needs to be rotated, 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 all to the target, while the upper body stays in line with where it was, creating that separation. When we get that versus this, especially that front leg not doing all of these movements over here, because the lower body has not been able to rotate forward, the upper body is going to have to do everything it can to try to create extra power that the lower body should be providing it, but isn't because of the position it's in. Because the hips aren't to the target, it's very hard for the upper body to get to the target. So what can the upper body do to make it easier? Peel open. So the glove adjustment is going to become a whole lot easier to achieve when we get the lower body adjustment. All right, and the last thing, which we don't really need to think about too much because we got enough on our hands with the first two things, but we need to think about the foot down and then the upper body get ready to throw. We just got to get these in sync. Notice that we got the good 90-90 versus we got a big angle and we're already starting to come through and throw. We got good back here. We got good hand separation. Just our path gets a little extra here, and now we just got this arm that's gonna be long and draggy and pushy, which is not going to be as powerful or as accurate or as healthy as an arm that's moving back almost the same way yours is. But we're going to see how your glove is getting very close to neutral while we're staying closed. And then we can see how you get way back here, which then leads to foot strike being there versus foot strike over here occurring there. So we can see this angle versus this angle, and then we can see this angle versus this angle. This is going to be a much healthier arm than this. This is going to be a much stronger arm than this. And this is going to be a much more repeatable command arm than this. So this will be something that we'll get to in a couple of months from now. We need to work on the glove and the lower body's rotation and its timing of its rotation first. All right, so we're gonna let your video play through here twice, bud. First time, all one motion so you can see how you're looking. The second time we'll pause it at that foot strike position so that way you can compare and contrast your body to the big leaguers that you just saw and was able to get a refresher on how the body should be moving down this mound. So here we are at foot strike. We look at this front leg here, and it has done a good job of getting itself rotated into place at the moment of contact with the ground. We then shift our focus to the backside, and we can see that this backside hip really hasn't rotated at all. We can confirm that by the center of your pants being right there. So there's your belt buckle. We go back from there, we can see that this knee has begun to rotate, but hasn't really rotated. And that is because this back foot is still completely up against the pitching rubber on the ground. We haven't begun to drive and rotate forward with our foot yet. And until we rotate forward with our foot, that back knee can't fully rotate, which means that back hip can't rotate forward, which means that belt buckle can't get going towards our target, which means we cannot separate our upper and our lower halves because our lower half, which needs to separate away from the upper half, hasn't done so. So the angle of our hips and the angle of our shoulders are very much together, which is minimizing our upper lower half separation, which means our ability to create maximum power by using our body is minimized, which means our arm is having to create that power, which means the stress being put on the arm is increased. Those are not what we're looking for if we want to be able to be a pitcher long term, where that long term is deep into games, whether that's deep into the season, whether that's year after year after year of pitching, we need to make sure that we're trying to put that stress on the body and not so much stress going on the arm. The arm is always going to be under stress while it throws. Our job is to minimize that by using our body to make the throw. In order to use the body, we got to have it timed up properly. And right now, our backside leg is late. So our first thing that we got to think about is lower body rotates into foot strike. We got to rotate this lower body into foot strike, not rotate the lower body after foot strike. After foot strike. After foot strike. We got to rotate that lower body before foot strike. Okay. What's something that we can see that's also a positive in addition to this front leg is where this glove is located at right now. It is right in front of that body, so that way we're looking over our shoulder. Our upper body is in a good closed position on this front side here. Okay. But let's take a look at this backside here. At foot strike, in those big league videos, we saw that those guys were in that 90-90 position. We can see your hand has not begun to flip up yet at all, meaning it's very, very late. Let's also think, why is it late, right? Just because we know it is late, we got to now figure out why it's late. And that is because the hand flipping up needs to be in sync with the lower body backside rotating forward. And what else did we say was late? The backside leg rotating forward. So if this was rotated on time, and when this goes, this loads, we would be all set. So we're going to watch as this goes, this will load. Boom. Boom. As the backside fully fires, the arm gets to load up. Boom. 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 However, we are doing that way too late. Way too late. So now, because it's so late on the backside to start going forward, we can see that the front side is going to start to peel to help bring that backside forward. We're late over here, so I'm going to do something over here to help that. So I'm late and late, so I'm going to pull to help bring the late around. And there's just a little bit of it occurring there. And that's just what your body has morphed into over years of having to deal with that timing to help try to make things as smooth as possible, to try to help make things work. So we got to get this arm ready to throw when the foot gets down. In order to do that, we got to get the upper and lower half to be in sync. Okay. So let's then see one of your teammates who does that well. We can say, go with Ty. And we'll just watch as his backside goes to fire, fire, and fire, how this arm will begin to load up and back. Boom. 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 So that way by foot strike, we got that 90-90. Versus you at foot strike haven't been able to fully do this rotation, and that's why we're not at 90-90. Right? We get you to get through here, and now we're going to get closer. But this is never going to be that 90-90 because, again, that front side is so far over here trying to get things to catch up and be on time with one another. So we just need to get that synchronization with the upper and the lower half. More specifically, when the back hip and knee are firing, and foot, when they're firing forward, what is the arm doing? It's loading up. And when is that occurring? Before that front foot gets in the ground, right? As that front foot's getting into the ground, not after that front foot's getting into the ground. The last thing we can see, stack yourself up after you finish. So we're going to make this throw, and we just kind of stay down, 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 down. We did it a little bit better over here. And it's a little late, but you want to be thinking about, we're trying to get stacked up tall by the time that foot hits the ground. Okay? When you want to be stacking ourselves up tall after the throw. You saw that in the big league videos beforehand. I think we got some of that happening here. Down, and then boom. Stacking himself back, up, tall. Goes down to throw, and then we're coming back up. All right. I don't know who else off the top of my head on your team. I mean, Kunes does it. I don't want to watch much of the beginning stuff, but we can just see he doesn't get a lot down, so it's a little bit easier. But just how we're getting tall after. Again, not the greatest example for us to drive that point home with. Not to Evan, not to my Zander. Yeah, we can use Zander. We're going to get that down, and now watch down, and then as he finishes, he's stacking himself back up versus staying down, 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 down the whole time. Okay? Think about anything that you do powerfully, it's going to go down, but there's going to be some type of recoil coming back up. That's what we want to think about. Down, and then bring it and stack it back up.